Audio check. Okay. Hello, anybody who is here and or watching this afterwards. So, try to fix with the Twitch mic last night, and it's just kind of dead. So laptop mic works kind of okay. It's been fine for doing these streams, but the Twitch streams are on the Josh's old gaming desktop tower, so kind of need an actual mic to hook up to that. And there's theoretically ways you could actually hook up a laptop and connect the two and use this thing, but I decided overall, especially since I do record regular videos for the channel, also I just went ahead and ordered the mic that he recommended since it was only 70 bucks. So that problem should be resolved finally once that microphone arrives in a few days, sometime between Friday and Sunday. But anyways, for the moment, it's only been 2 days since the last YouTube stream, but we have plenty of stuff going on all over the place. So to start with, the non-directly market affecting stuff, but still Middle East related. Remember, the IDF invaded up to here in southern Lebanon, and they pulled back to around like here or so, and they agreed on paper at least to withdraw further, like another third of the way down to here, but only if, draw a little exclamation point, but only if the regular Lebanese army came into the area to be forced to actually fight and combat Hezbollah in the IDF's absence. And during the beginnings of the supposed withdrawal of the IDF and the implementation of Lebanese army occupation in the area, the IDF and the Lebanese army started shooting at each other and engaged in ground combat earlier today. So hopefully that ends up as a one-time incident and doesn't turn into an actual Israeli-Lebanon war, along with the other Hezbollah stuff that's already going on, because then that will immediately give Netanyahu an excuse to do whatever he wants and just do like full push into Lebanon and probably resume carpet bombing Beirut. But that is a thing that happened earlier today. So we're going to have to wait and watch and see how that goes and how that all spirals around. Let me be responsible and check chat more frequently. Andrew's the only one alive, so never mind. And the Houthis have expanded their proclamation of closure of traffic shutoff from just Saudi vessels themselves to now declaring and backing up said claim that they will attack any vessels going to and from Saudi Arabia that try to pass through the Gulf of Aden or Bab el-Mandeb Strait here. And so they did threaten and started launching stuff at a couple ships going to and from Saudi Arabia, oil tankers included. So now ships that were going to Saudi Arabia, both cargo and oil tankers, have turned around, and those who were leaving, who were going to markets in Asia, have had to turn around, and those that there's two tankers that are apparently too large for the Suez. I think the people who tweeted that don't know what they're talking about, because the Suez is pretty wide. It's not the Panama Canal. The Suez is more akin to like an artificial Bosphorus Straits up there in Turkey. But Saudi traffic to and from Saudi Arabia of all various kinds is now going to have to go the long way in each direction. So we'll draw arrows like that and draw arrows going in that way. So both directions, it's either going to be it's either going to have to be taking the extra long way and draw some stuff going up there to China as well. If they can fit, maybe some of them will go through the Panama Canal. You never know. But it's going to have to be taking the long way around Africa now, since can't go through there. Everybody else, for the moment, unless the Houthis go completely crazy like they did last time, they just start firing on any ship in existence that starts going through that strait. For the moment, any other ship going anywhere in the world to or from any place other than Saudi Arabia, in theory, if they keep their word at least, can still and is still going through there. But anything having to do with Saudi Arabia is now going to have to be taken the long way around Africa or across the Atlantic and through the Panama Canal. And strikes continued on and by Iran over the last 2 days since we did the last stream, with right this instant, actually, as we're speaking, bombs are currently falling on Shiraz. Bandar Abbas is like 90% of what's being struck is in Bandar Abbas. That's also where a lot of the drone launching and anti-ship missile launching has come from, that Iran has been striking stuff in the Strait of Hormuz with. So that's probably what's being aimed for. But now also, after the only real strikes the U.S. made against Iranian oil infrastructure previously, not counting the stuff that the IDF struck, because the IDF did hit a lot of stuff on their own. But the only things we had hit were, we disabled one oil tanker at Karg Island, and we damaged one of the loading platforms at Karg Island, one of the loading, offloading terminal pipelines. However, it looks like one of the cities in Khuzestan down here at the coast, as of the moment, we are currently bombing one of their oil refineries. So that's apparently what Trump meant when he did his mega Trumpster angry tweet about how Iran will pay. As for those who missed the Sunday stream, for the first time since April, U.S. actually suffered combat fatalities, with two service members being killed at a base in Jordan, as Iran has shifted its focus in its targeting from trying to target U.S. Aircraft on the ground, U.S. air assets, to just targeting the troop housing areas, at least in the Jordanian bases, because in the Jordanian bases, it's kind of really dumbly obvious, because you have the semi-X pattern of the runways, then you'll have your hangar buildings and some stuff over here, and then like your tarmac with the planes and their hangars and everything. And then over here, you have this giant cluster of a billion like shiny white trailers all packed densely together. That's the troop housing in really ill-advised, dense packing. So they've decided they're just going to start targeting that from now on. And also, one soldier was killed on the ground in Iraq, as the Iraqi militias that answer to the Iranian government in Tehran have started sporadically, randomly attacking American sites and Iraqi security force sites across the country. And over the night last night and earlier today, Iran did take two oil tankers out of service. struck one in the engine room, and the whole engine room and compartment is basically gone. And so that one is out of service indefinitely, effectively a write off for that company, and hit another, but that one's not damaged too much. The crew still evacuated, but the ship itself can return to service eventually in like a month or two, but that's being towed to somewhere in Oman at the moment. And the major damage that was done on Iran's part over the last 2 days was strikes they conducted against Kuwait, in which one of Kuwait's desalination plants was severely damaged and is running at limited capacity. And Kuwait predominantly relies on desalination for its water supply. And also, they've taken the Ukraine approach and have begun hitting Kuwait's electricity grid distribution system. And the situation has gotten wonky pretty fast over the last 12 hours or so. And the Kuwaiti government has now imposed mandatory electricity rationing and has forced a number of sites to shut down, which were not specified, but I assume since it's a heavy electricity demand source, they probably told the steel mills and the aluminum smelting plants to shut down, since that would be the easiest one to go for, because they none of the petrostates want to start like a anti-government riot by cutting the people off from the air conditioning in the middle of summer. But the electricity loss, depending on how long it takes to be restored, even if the strait were reopened tomorrow, would cause issues with running some of the oil infrastructure and Kuwait's ability to load cargo and such. So that is also a factor that is now stacking up. And so everyone, after all the various major highways and bridges over the different canyons and ravines leading into Bandar Abbas had been taken out in U.S. airstrikes previously last week, everyone had been, saying that blah, 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 this is going to be some big beach landing marine invasion of the city, which I wasn't buying because that'd be stupid. It looked like that was primarily just to cut off replenishment for the now much more intensive bombing of all the anti-ship missile launching stuff and drone launching stuff and crews, so that it will be not really possible for Iran to, for the moment, get replenishment stuff back in there, as the only way at this point then would be to like carried in by helicopter or something, which those would then just get shot down. So that seems like that's the general goal, or that was the general aim behind doing that. Although Iran also has continued striking a lot of the now empty buildings at the former U.S. Fifth Fleet primary dock base in Bahrain that we're no longer using. And we also have continued striking a number of not really that important things in Iran as well. So it's gone from we were lightly charade slapping each other up to making it believable to the market, and now it's been gradually tipping upwards into like just past the 50-50 split into more like a 60-40 real versus theater split. Although, even despite such, and despite all the stuff with the Houthis now starting as well, the market is still being dumb and it's starting to cap itself here. Still looks like it wants to try to cap itself off at $85 a barrel. Meanwhile, back in the US, the Strategic Petroleum Reserve still keeps getting sucked dry from 430 at the start of all this, down now all the way to only 310 million barrels in storage. I don't have exact numbers for other countries, but at the rate they've gone, China has now likely, since they've been using theirs to help supplement the oil import needs of some of the other Asian nations like Vietnam and the Philippines, for example, they have been drawing down uh, from 1.3 billion in storage down to it's estimated around 1.15 most likely right now. I'm about to sneeze, so forgive me. I'm going to mute myself for a second. Uh, yeah, so a lot of stuff being hit in Bandar Abbas at the moment. Yeah, shift towards hitting the troop housing area, try to inflict maximum casualties. Houthi stuff. Another another random Trump being Trump moment, where after someone brought up the IDF and Lebanese army actively getting into actual fights, ground combat with each other today. He he waved it off and said he doesn't think anything will happen, and said that Israel and Lebanon actually like each other really much. Many people are saying this. Blah blah blah. Yeah, Pentagon, CIA, uh, openly saying that can't really do much other than killing them. Nothing's really going to change the Iranian leadership's mind about what its aims are and what it wants. Yeah, we're starting to really crank up the whole anti-Cuba stuff, as despite the fact that, like I've said a million times, the Cuban government has already coalesced. I'm going to draw, it's not actually white, but I'm going to draw a theoretical white flag here. The Cuban government has already acquiesced and said they'll just agree to any terms that we ask of them as long as they, the current politicians in power, get to stay in power in Cuba. So despite them offering literally 120% capitulation, it looks like we're still going to end up doing something. I don't know, airstrikes, Maduro 24-hour overnight war 2.0 or something, because uh, the current administration wants to do something to look better and more competent than this whole little misadventure is making it look. And we've completed the whole trifecta, the whole Illuminati triangle now. It's upside down, but we completed it after we had one long term, one short term, and one long term again. So the joke was 20 years in Afghanistan to replace the Taliban with the Taliban. Uh, 20 within 20 days in the Iran war, 20 days to replace the Ayatollah with the Ayatollah, except a much more angry, much more radical Ayatollah. And now, since he's been having the military just bag all of his opposition figures, now it's 23 years in Iraq to replace Saddam with Saddam. Although his name is different. His name is uh, what's his name? Ali Al Zaidi is the new Saddam now, because he just started arresting anybody who might run against him. Just like Modi is doing over in India. Everybody know that. So apparently, over the last big happy face, over the last like 48 hours, mass protests have erupted across India despite the heat. And although it's cooler than it was in the spring because it is now the monsoon season, despite the heat where it isn't raining, and despite the heat and rain where it is raining, heavy monsoon deluges, uh, millions of people have gone out and in mass protest in India because take a guess what Modi just did. India does have multiple opponents. It's not just black and white, not just one versus the other, or where only one really mattered, like with Putin and Navalny. India does have like a split. There's like different amounts, but a lot of the stuff like goes to one particular. It was Modi, and then there'll be like one bigger opposition figure, but there are still others. But the one big one, Modi declared him guilty of treason and had him arrested a few days ago. So that kind of set everybody off. So he kind of just publicly, by means of action, admitted that he now just wants to be the forever dictator, as everybody is doing. The current dictator of Nicaragua, already was a forever leader, a forever president. Although today he said the quiet part out loud and just declared that there's not going to be any more elections until he's dead, at least. He didn't add that part, so I guess he's implying that he's immortal by not saying as much. But he did publicly give a big rousing speech about how there's not going to be any more elections. But up until now, he did hold fake elections where he, got like 98% of the vote or whatever. In some good news, Brazil continues with their ongoing, not as sharp as the first 2 years, but they've continued with their ongoing reduction in Amazon forest cover loss. Lula, the current president's goal is to get the Amazon to a zero loss point, or even just minuscule net reforestation point before he's dead, at least, is what he would like to see. So, apart from the actual Brazilian military having something to do for like the first time in its existence in like, I don't know, over a century or whatever, uh, flying in helicopters to illegal clearing sites, which are usually people setting up uh, off off grid, unmonitored, like gold mining, flying in and arresting everybody involved, and or getting into shootouts with them because the people running the illegal mining operations all have AKs for some reason. So mostly because they get into turf wars with each other. But when the Brazilian military has like flown in on them, they've just decided they're willing to die for the mining site, I guess. So they've started shooting at the helicopters when they come in, and helicopters kind of shot back with, way more firepower. So they've been shutting that down. They've been cutting back on the inward clearing by people trying to expand the agricultural ranching land, which does involve and kind of by necessity require uh, compensating people for the inbound inability to continue the ranching stuff because rainforest land, after you, the soil only stays viable for rainforest plants. It's not viable for like actual grassland or agriculture stuff. It will work for about 2 or 3 years after you remove the rainforest, but after that, uh, grass and anything that isn't a rainforest plant can't really use the soil anymore because it's not ecologically like devised in that way. So that's why they always kept moving in, but now they're being cycled out via incentive schemes and everything to just switch livelihoods, move somewhere else, do something else, stop burning the forest down. And more funding has been directed towards and been making appropriate purchases with actual actual firefighting and containment practices and equipment, as in areas where they did not get to in time, or where they have not managed to buy everybody out from yet. Fires are still getting started and often spread decently farther than those who start them otherwise would intend them to. And so they end up burning decently more portions down than otherwise would be. So they're getting now rapidly much better at stopping those. And so we're down to something of somewhere around or below 20% Amazon forest cover loss rate compared to what it was 3 years ago. So that is a substantial rapid drop that we can hopefully see continue to a net 0 point, and eventually, in like a decade or two, I think in what remains, not the animated indie series I'd want to make, but the regular takes place in the real world novel that I am still writing that I talked about a while ago, that takes place around 2060. I had it set that the Amazon did reach uh, a zero point and begun a turnaround around 2039. I think I specifically said, but that was based on my own expectations of the reduction rates would eventually, as it has started to level out like this, and would probably eventually cross that threshold around like close to 2040 or so. And after studies about mechanisms and the right approach of how to do so, actual like reforestation effort would have to begin slowly and experimentally at first for a few years before it could then start being cranked up, and also would start gaining its own natural reinforcement momentum. So that's going on over there. Now back into not not great to hear stuff. So I was wrong about the numbers. The the site that's now surrounded completely by the RSF forces is actually one of the internally displaced refugee camps in Sudan. And uh, the warfare method that's developed in Ukraine and the Middle East of the like really cheap to buy quad rotor drones with like explosives duct taped underneath them, a grenade, a pack of C4, whatever, that have, that target like military trucks and target enemy infantry, etc. The RSF is now using those to just start randomly raining them down on the refugee tents and on people in the actual town and city itself. And they've taken out the water pumps and the wells. So there is now no water in that city slash refugee area. And the attempts of continued food relief and supplies being brought in, they are now hitting those. So the Doctors Without Borders and the World, I think it's just World Food Program, are now constantly losing workers and volunteers trying to get stuff in there because they're getting blown up. So now it's looking like they are. I guess they're not just going to go in and mow everybody down like they did to 160,000 people last year in that other settlement. Now it looks like, apart from probably inevitably killing a few thousand, tens of thousands, via just raining the quad rotor suicide drone stuff down on them, it looks like they're just going to uh, enact the death of hundreds of thousands of people via starvation, although mostly death by dehydration, since they've completely cut them off from water. The amount of people there I thought was 200,000. I was wrong. Apparently, it's closer to 500,000. So, why do they desire to massacre these 500,000 people? I don't know. This isn't even in like the Darfur region, and this isn't like some of the Arab slash the semi-arid slash mostly African Sudanese split. These are supposedly like the same people. Like these are the same, ethnically the same people, but they're gonna kill them anyways. I have no idea what anyone is doing anymore, other than just everybody is possessed by a demon. But that is something that is literally happening in that camp where they fled to after previously fleeing attempts at similar massacres. There are right this instant, as you're listening to this, hundreds of thousands of people, children included, in that place, hearing the drone rotor buzz and hearing random pops around them, sometimes far away, sometimes right next to them, as drones are just coming down on random refugee tents. Because reasons. Why does Saudi Arabia love bombing hospitals in Yemen? I don't know. Probably demons. That's like the best excuse I can give humanity, if humanity is still trying to look for a way to obfuscate its own evil and responsibility from itself. All right. Did we get anybody else in? Uh, Lake Mead will be dealt with in the end of the month video, as always. Its loss has slowed down over the last 24 hours because there was a massive wave of rain that swept through, but the relief from that is going to wear off over the preceding 24 hours. It is getting pretty close to that low point, though. Over here, we have Polska rising. So, the in terms of its European allies, not that it has any anymore because we're betraying and stabbing everybody in the back. The UK had gradually dwindled down its own independent stuff over the course of time, and is primarily just relying on the EU military satellite network, the joint NATO network, and the Five Eyes program with themselves, us, Canada, and Australia and New Zealand, I think. France was the only one who was and still does maintain their own military satellite network and constantly keeps it well and going. Like they launch several replacements every year. That has changed. It's not only France anymore. As of the start of last year, Poland, I don't remember where they launched. I think they launched theirs from either like Spain or France's site down in French Guinea down in South America. But Poland, apart from being part of the EU and NATO satellite networks, has begun actually deploying its own independent Polish military satellite network for both comms and spying and such. And so last year they put up two. Over the course of this year, they're putting up four. And so by the end of this year, they're going to be up to an independent network of six. So it used to just be a meme, the whole Polska Rising thing, Return of the Winged Hussars. But now Polska's not actually joking about it anymore. Like I said before, remember they're actively developing their own nukes right now because Germany and the UK kind of got a bit sussy about things. It looked like they were moving and purchasing and building. And so we asked them earlier this year, hey, you're not making nukes, are you? And Poland was just like, I'm not going to pretend I can draw a thumbs up emoji. Poland was just like, damn straight, we're making nukes. We don't trust any of you. We have zero reason to trust either of you, especially not you. Your existence over here is an existential threat, and the U.S. clearly, uh, instead of defending anyone from Russia, wants to be like gay butt buddies with Russia. So yeah, you're the only ones. We're the only ones. Well, ourselves are the only ones we can actually count on. So yeah, damn straight we're making nukes. Turkey is going to end up with its own nukes at some point. They've just been going way more slowly and quietly with it. But Polska is like full, uh, full Spartan Leonidas abs exposed to the world, does not care who knows what anymore. Come and get some, crash against the shield wall. And in the Russia-Ukraine stuff, we had Russia managed to strike big grand total number, I forgot, four or five. It's either four or five. They struck one more cargo ship going to and from the port of Odessa, as that's what they've managed to do after Ukraine has hit just short of 200 individual ships of different sizes going to and from Russia in the Azov and Black Seas. Russia has, for the most part, just stuck with their primary their primary retaliation source, which, as always, has been to bomb apartment buildings and kill some kids. Doesn't hasn't changed the course of anything. Ukraine's not stopping. So, and after hitting that massive domestic ground freight shipping logistics warehouse over the weekends that accounted for about 7% of Russia's ground freight central hub transport stuff. Over on the west side of Moscow, Ukraine hit another one, not one that's as large. This one was a 3%er instead of a 7%er, but still that adds up to, 10%. Now, just to one city being 10% of like nearly the whole country's thing kind of would probably sound lopsided at first, but remember, uh, pretty much 90% of Russia's population is over here. And actually, then also, if you like draw another line here, then you'd get 80% of the population is here. And out of 100, they're around 141 million now, although their own statistics that they publish, they since the war started, they keep insisting that their population has actually not changed. It's actually stayed right at 146 million. Nothing, their demographic situation that they were bemoaning before the war even started, losing 600,000 people per year from just natural aging and dying of the population, apparently that just magically went away in 2022. And some people have said that it's because they're counting like the Donbass population as part of Russia or something. But even if that were the case, all that would mean is that they would have added on that would have seen them like add on another like 2 million people or something, and then still continue going down. But that's not what they're claiming. They're literally claiming that they're just staying at 146 million, which is not, that's not how it works. Uh, in reality, they're down around like 141. If I'm being generous, maybe they're still up at 142. But out of that, between 20 and 25 million, so 20% of that population all lives right around the Moscow ring. So that's why, two giant mega ground freight warehouses that account for like 10% of the total logistics thing were right there next to a single city, is because like 20% of the country's population is in that single circle right there. But that wasn't the only thing that was hit. The second warehouse, Ukraine also struck and has caused at least the temporary, for the next week or two, shutdown of one of Russia's largest steel mills, steel production facilities in Lipetsk, along with, once again, hitting the oil export terminal at Novorossiysk, as repairs were attempting to be made to the various loading sections and pipelines that were damaged the last time a few weeks ago. So those were taken out. Presumably the, repairing and construction equipment was also lost. Potentially the repair crews were lost as well. And for the first time since the early months of the war, there was actually air-to-air combat over Ukraine. And for the first time since I'm pretty sure for the first time since the invasion of Iraq in 2003, a F-16 actually was in a situation in the first place where it could engage in air-to-air combat, and the kill uh, on Ukraine's part shot down. It was just two aircraft. It was just 1v1. The Russian aircraft was shot down specifically by one of the F-16s Ukraine has gotten from Belgium. So that's the first time. That's the first time an F-16 specifically has been in air-to-air combat since 2003. With the last time before that I know of for certain was obviously back in '91. The justified Gulf War, as there's the two Gulf Wars. Remember, there's Gulf One, which was the one where Iraq was the one doing the invading, and they were being repulsed, not just by us, but by everybody else as well. Then there was uh, Gulf Two, the one we refer to as the Iraq War, although a lot of people keep confusing them, which is the one where we were the ones who did the invading. I don't know if F-16s saw actual combat during the Serbia Kosovo stuff, so that's why I didn't specify that one because I don't know for sure. The only ones I know for sure were F-16s actually saw uh, like air-to-air combat before before yesterday was back during each of the Gulf Wars over Iraq. And the in-air shoot downs of aircraft in Iran, of which there were not many because a lot of Iran's Air Force stuff was bombed on the ground. But some Iranian aircraft did actually get in the air and in the early days, in the first like few days of March, and did try to engage some of the incoming American aircraft. Those were all done by F-35s and F-15s. So there were no F-16s involved in that. But so this is officially the first time there was actual air to air with an F-16 since 2003. But it was just the one thing. So it's not, there was not like, there's not like tons of aircraft from each side, like crossing and going around an area. This was, this is not likely going to happen again because this was a really sort of rare. Uh, I mean, they each were told that the other one was there, obviously, but this was not. That this was more like this one was doing this and this one was already doing this, and they happened to be in this general vicinity at the same time, and were then told the other was there, so they both went towards and engaged each other. So it's not likely going to happen again, as Russia's tried avoiding flying directly over Ukraine in the first place because they didn't like the loss rate against anti-air defenses, and and Ukraine's not flying jets, at least not manned fighter jets, into Russia, like trying to seek out air-to-air combat. Before this, the only air-to-air combat happened primarily in like the northeastern portion of the country during the first week or two of the war. Uh, and for domestic security, Ukraine has now uh, copying off of the Bayraktar design from Turkey, as Turkey is fine with Ukraine semi-copying it, but for corporate reasons, obviously for copyright infringement protection. Not that that's legitimately a thing in the military-industrial complex, at least between different nations. Within the same nation, at least, like in the U.S., Lockheed and Boeing can like bribe different congressional officials to mega sue each other if they copy each other's designs or whatever. But they made something very similar to the Bayraktar, the Lyoti. So they now, instead of just the suicide drones, they are going to actually have their own drones that carry multiple different munitions. And it is also a very hard to detect by radar piece of plastic, and very low thermal sensory piece of plastic as well. Oops, no, I didn't mean to do that. Delete all of those. They've developed this as well, which, so they had a smaller version of this that they've been selling in droves to the Middle Eastern countries, which is the little quad jets at the back, pointed missile shaped interceptor thing that you launch at the ground, and it homes in on a incoming Shahed drone, and will crash itself into and do a little pop grenade explosion and take out the incoming suicide drone. This is a bigger version that's meant to go up fast and get to a higher altitude, not high altitude as in like 30,000 feet, but high enough to hit actual like manned combat aircraft. So you'd have like a jet coming in. Russian ones usually have a huge like cockpit overbulge thing at the front. So do my best here. Then you have the afterburner. It's like that. So they're meant to go up into and I guess get themselves sucked into the air intake and pop and blow, or perhaps hit the nose radar dish, pop and blow, or maybe hit some of the missiles, some of the munitions on the pylons under the wings, pop and blow. So continuing to see a really fast-paced evolutionary change in the methodology behind and around air-to-air combat, and the means by which Ukraine was able to hit the Omsk oil refinery way out in Siberia was revealed. So that is a high altitude balloon. That is one of their uh, longer range Beaver drone, suicide drones, being hung from underneath it. The drones do have a decent flight range on their own. They can reach places up and into around like the Russian triangle or whatever, Kazan, Ufa, and Samara. However, their range should not have been enough to be striking Yekaterinburg or striking Omsk, or potentially, I'm gonna have to actually DM one of the Russian, well, one of my fellow. I don't do fanfics anymore because I'm doing original stuff, but uh, one of my at the time when I wrote fanfics, I still talk to the person. I just don't write fanfics anymore. But fellow fanfic writer who lives in Novosibirsk, just gonna let him know he's potentially going to see the refinery in Novosibirsk and potentially some of the aircraft plants start blowing up in the immediate future. Uh, the Ukraine has now revealed that's how they reached Omsk and Yekaterinburg. Since the oops, no, click the mouse. Since the high altitude winds, the jet stream, the prevailing winds blow like this. They undulate in an S pattern, but they go west to east in the northern hemisphere. So Ukraine hangs these things from drones, or hangs the drones from high altitude balloons. They just let them go. They get up there, they get blown with the winds 100 miles an hour, and once they're within the flight range of their destination, so say the winds carry it like weirdly and awkwardly to say like here, some of them are here, one's really close, others are like over here. But that's all like within their actual flight range. Once they're within that range, they remotely activate the release and the little like flip things, the little arm claws that are, well, let me draw one of those tourist trap things. Oh no, wait, I can just look one up. Hold up. I can just look one up. Hold on. Skip past Google's AI stupid thing by having something already saved in image cert. Shark mouth grabber toy. Yeah, I don't know if any of you have ever had one of these. It's on a long stick and it has the trigger at the bottom. You pull the trigger and like the shark mouth grabs it. This isn't actually what's holding the drones on the balloon. I'm just using this for funnier imagery. So once it's within general flight range of the target, in these cases, Yekaterinburg and the big one in Omsk, they remotely activate the thing. The shark mouth releases, the drone starts diving down and activates its actual like flight and then cruises on to the destination and hits it. So now they can actually hit whatever they want. They don't need long range exo atmosphere reentry ballistic missiles, they can actually just use these. As long as you just let it go, you can wait until the wind carries it to basically any spot you feel like, then trigger the release, have it go and hit any target. I don't know if whatever that one is down there, whatever. Now, obviously, this is also not restricted to Ukraine. Anybody could also use this tactic from now on. Japan tried doing this in World War II, but this was before satellites and drones. This was just they threw bombs tied to balloons up into the jet stream, and they just had the release. The only thing they could do is set it on a timer, and they just generally calculated that it would take I think they calculated it'll take 2.5 days to cross the Pacific in the jet stream at the jet stream speed. So they just set the timer for 60 hours or whatever, and hoped that bombs would fall on like Seattle or San Francisco or something. And because you know, not just the fact it was back then, but also because it was the Pacific Northwest and it was California, most of them just fell randomly in the hills or out in some field. Some did actually. One like blew up a barn, I think, in like November of 1944 or something, and killed some cows. But I that's the only like one I can remember hitting a target. Not that that particular one was intentional, but anyone could theoretically now do this, although you are restricted by directionality. You can only send things west to east in the northern hemisphere, and you are restricted by the jet stream's actual path of existence, which is kind of constrained along like this general route. It's not like all over the place, and it curves back down towards the US. So it's not like all across the hemisphere or whatever. And uh, down the south, obviously the southern hemisphere flows the opposite direction. So that is the revealed means, very successful means because it worked, of hitting Yekaterinburg and hitting Omsk. So now, in the ever growing line of few lingering refineries that are still fully functional, Novosibirsk is probably next, unless they want to stay focused in the West and start hitting all the pipeline pumping stations, or start hitting Russia's other steel mills and steel plants and stuff. Or, of course, they could keep going across the country's various ground freight shipment hubs. There's probably two or three similarly sized ones around St. Petersburg they could go for. I don't know. We'll find out because every night, overnight, new stuff is hit. Oh, yeah, shipping. They could always just start hitting literally every commercial shipping vessel up there outside of St. Petersburg because that's within range. They don't need the balloons for that one. The balloons wouldn't go in that direction anyways, but they could start hitting the ones up there too, since even without the balloons, drones just crossing regularly at low altitude over the Russian skies and stuff, there's been no visible means of actually stopping them. Big part of that is having to do with the whole Puckerdanus tactic, in that ever-growing portion of Russia's remaining air defense systems are all packed around Moscow specifically, because there's only one person whose life in Russia actually matters. But they're now like upwards of over 120 80 systems are specifically just packed around the Moscow metro area. So there'll be something else overnight tonight. Wait to see what it is. I'll also wait to see whether the US is actually going to start systematically targeting Iran's oil and gas infrastructure. And if in return Iran is going to start continuing to hit uh, US aligned Persian Gulf members' critical infrastructure, such as further electricity stuff and desalination plants, we'll wait and see. Is Modi in India going to arrest all of his other political opposition, or is it just that one guy? We'll have to wait and see. Is anyone actually Does anyone actually care about the 500,000 people who are going to die of dehydration and starvation over the next few weeks because the RSF has been using little quadrotor drones to bomb out all of the wells around that refugee camp? Is anyone actually going to try to stop that? Probably not, but we'll see. All right, that's going to be it, most likely. You guys, you know, it's under the same name. You can go find my Twitch account over here. It's still just under Maxagear. The next two, tomorrow night and Saturday night, I will probably be doing almost no actual talking because it's just that horrible. The mic I have to hook up to Josh's old gaming PC is just that far gone. So it's tomorrow night's Gauntlet Dark Legacy, Saturday night is Dark Souls 2. I will be barely actually speaking or replying to anything. Not that there's anybody there usually to reply to, but I'll barely be saying anything during those ones because that mic is just so bad at this point that I feel terrible for actually forcing anyone to have to hear words coming out of that thing. But the new mic is coming on Sunday at the latest, possibly as early as Friday. So maybe I might actually have it set up by Saturday night. But either way, that's there if you want to go follow on Twitch and wait until probably for best case circumstances until this coming Monday of next week, by which I will actually have a functional microphone. So that's going to be it for this one. Did we get anything new in the last few minutes? Blah, blah, blah. Footage from actual stuff launching and striking. Oh, even did strikes on Tehran, apparently. See what the outcome of that was tomorrow. Bro! $50 cash money. Thank you. That's about as much as I usually get in ad revenue every month. Uh, I guess you weren't here for any of those streams then. I brought that up a few times because Poland is not being covert about it. They do not care. They are they, they're literally doing the whole nearly naked Leonidas and the Spartans moment when the Persians came up to them in the movie and were like shouting about how their evil like barbarism or whatever. Poland's response is just to like start pelvic thrusting towards the camera. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if they have that much direct influence. Like uh, they 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 have enough. They have enough pull, obviously, because of how dependent Russia is now becoming on them, with how much of Russia's domestic stuff it keeps losing. and its other import sources are obviously cut off now. So they have enough pull to force Russia's hand in like contracts, like that the second natural gas pipeline that's being built from Russia into China, so that the China can import 8 billion cubic feet per day instead of just four. Like they did have enough influence to force Russia to sign the agreement under the terms of China China pays nothing. Like Russia has to pay for the pipeline's construction, but the it will be constructed by Chinese companies, or it is actively being constructed right now by Chinese companies. Chinese companies will receive the money, and China itself will own the pipeline altogether. It won't be joint ownership or anything. Like they have enough. They have enough pull at this point where they can and have forced Russia to sign stuff like that. But I don't know. I can't like solidly answer that because I don't know if they actually have enough direct internal influence to where they could actually force people to actually out him. Because people more people more in tune with Putin's inner circle than me, like Vlad Vexler, for example, have said before that there's only a handful of people around in Russia's upper echelon who would still probably be bold enough to either confront Putin or just outright kill him if they felt like they could or they had no other choice. But most of them probably would not do it because they actively know that there's not enough of them anymore, mainly because Putin kind of either killed or quote unquote retired the others who he suspected would be bold enough to do that. So I don't really know if either they have enough inside influence like that, but also if there's enough people around him who'd be willing to actually do it. I think I I've said before, I think mostly everyone is kind of just waiting on the inevitable because he is or is about to turn 74, and Russia's political leaders uh, back through the Soviet times and everything have very consistently, you can go back and check and see yourself, outside of assassinations like the Tsar, they have really consistently died like in precisely in their mid 70s. It's like this one 74, this one 76, that one 75, that one 75. I think there were like multiple separate different guys in the 1980s who all died at like exactly 75. So I'm not saying it's like supernatural or a curse or anything. I'm just saying it's been really consistent. Gorbachev was an exception. He was like, I don't know, 98 or whatever, but he is an exception. And the last Czar doesn't count because he was like 37 or whatever and he got shot in the face. So that's not a natural death. But the others have really consistently died in mid 70s, not late 70s, not early 70s, not 80s, but really consistently died in their mid 70s. So I think everyone's been leaning towards like just waiting on the inevitable. Although again, if Ukraine continues to just absolutely shred Russia's like economic ability to function altogether, that might start shifting things, obviously. But outside of that, if this wasn't actively happening, if Ukraine's current campaign of like utter economic annihilation wasn't going on, and the war just kept going as it was before that, like up until it was going a month ago, then I don't know, probably maybe they'd wait until he got past his mid 70s, and if it looked like he was still just going to keep kicking for a while, then maybe people might start like shifting, might start changing their minds about their willingness to do stuff. But on the on-ground public front, as of the last I saw, people, uh, as the guy I mentioned, Vlad Vexter, said it pretty succinctly. Most Russians, at least those who are visibly voicing like dissatisfaction with what's going on, they're still effectively talking about everything exploding around them as if it's like a storm or a weather event. It's something that just happened. Uh, no one's no one's still willingly like mentioning that there's a cause and effect to all of this. There is like an internal war going on among like propagandists on Russian TV, but it's mostly them like fighting each other. It's not like some like a year ago there were a few who turned on Putin, not in the way you think though. There were some propagandists who turned on Putin and were like getting angry at him because he wasn't using nukes and because he wasn't like using flamethrowers or whatever. Some of them were getting angry that he was not being brutalist enough for their liking. But those people he had killed. So he doesn't take that kind of criticism either, apparently. But yeah, I can't solidly answer that one. But if you have to tip the scales, I would lean closer to no, at least for the immediate moment. If it gets bad enough to where shipments of stuff from Russia to China that China wants actually start getting affected, which for the moment it has not, because the stuff Russia gets or that China gets from Russia are primarily going eastward. There, China's not the one who receives like say Russian oil tankers that leave the port of Novorossiysk or the port in St. Petersburg. They receive the ones that come down from Vladivostok or stuff like natural gas that comes down from a pipeline from eastern Siberia. So maybe if Russia starts buckling enough to where even if Ukraine doesn't specifically hit the stuff far out east, just its logistical ability in general to even continue giving stuff to China starts to fail, then China would almost certainly try at least. But I don't know if they have that much like direct internal influence in that way. Because Putin has pretty solidly gotten everything around himself at this point over the last 26 years in the whole cult of the charismatic leader thing, just without any of the charisma. Like none of these guys have charisma. Any of the current dudes, all around the world, not just specifically talking about Russia. Like looking back, ignoring obviously the fact of like the things they were saying and trying to accomplish in terms of end goals were evil, obviously. But looking back at like all the dudes from way back when, like Stalin, Hitler, Mao, Lenin, uh, Churchill, and FDR on the other side, for example, like every looking back, like everybody in the old times where everybody was like rallying around single leaders. All of them like actually had really like crowd carrying charisma. And looking around at like the current crowd, like nobody's got anything going. Everybody is just old. Like everybody is just they're either Botox, skin stretchy in Putin's case, or they're getting 1,000 points of their skin sucked in and getting 15 turkey necks, like in Trump's case. All everybody is just old and starting to like talk in circles. Uh, Xi Jinping is Xi Jinping's like still he's still punctually competent. He's not becoming senile like the others yet, but he doesn't really have like any charisma though. All right, that's going to probably be it. Oh, wait, $50. That means 50 million people have to get added the Maxogirium, to the Maxogir Empire. Okay, let's see. Now, let's do this real quick before I shut this down. All right, we got all of the Americas, we got Europe, we got the decent chunk of Russia, we got Kazakhstan. We can probably, actually, you know what? Here, Maxogir with all of these militaries plus friends, Japan, South Korea. So U.S., all of NATO plus Japan, South Korea. All your militaries belong to me now. Maxogir is going to go and stop the constant dehydration, starvation massacres in Sudan. We've claimed Sudan. Sudan's now part of the Maxogirium. So we can at least pretend that that's not actively happening right now. Technically, that's only 47 or 48 million. I'll come up with another two somewhere. But anyways, that's going to be it for now. I'll see you guys on Friday. Uh, unless there's anybody on Twitch tomorrow night. But reminder, I won't really be talking that much because I don't want anyone to have to suffer what that mic sounds like. But that mic is still coming on, or the new mic is coming on Sunday, hopefully. I was about to check my email, but then I remembered because of the new stupid AI thing that everybody has, it keeps just randomly saying, we've decided this looks important. You should have a look at it. And we'll just show the contents of emails openly as soon as your emails open without you actually clicking on the individual messages. So I don't want to expose that much personal information or uh, have Google's AI exposing that much personal information on stream in front of people. But I'll check after I end the stream and see if the microphone actually shipped yet. But I'll see you guys around. Thank you. That's a bunch of letters and numbers. I'm just gonna say Joe. I'll call that Joe. Uh, Joe number 6193. So I'll see you guys next time.